Okay, good. Well, thank you very much, Brad. It is an honor to be here. That is the only time my basketball career has been compared to Jimmer Fredette. I mean, the only time that that I've ever been mentioned in the same sentence. So thank you for that. And thank you, President Holland, for attending today. Now I feel guilty I did not wear a tie. The guy always looks so sharp. He's a dear friend, someone that I have enormous respect for, and you are in very good hands in terms of leadership as long as President Holland is here. We've had a number of meetings and dinners in the East thinking about and discussing together the way to get more people from the East to come to this great institution. Because I'm a believer in what the mission of this institution is and what is happening here. But today, for a few minutes, since we're in the business school and this was arranged by the business school, I'd like to tell you about a company that I have been privileged to join in the last few years called Legends. Now, Legends is titled Legends because it was started by two legendary franchises, the New York Yankees and the Dallas Cowboys. Jerry Jones and Hal Steinbrenner and George Steinbrenner got together and decided that the whole customer experience around professional sports was inadequate. They decided to create a company to try to change that, and I was privileged to buy the other third of the company 2 years ago and step in as chairman and CEO. That's why I sold Real Salt Lake and the St. Louis Blues and everything else I was doing. And the reason I did that was because there was this compelling and interesting proposition that all these years of watching people come and go and buy tickets in sports created an opportunity for us to actually really change the customer experience. And now we've expanded, as you'll hear, into many other sites, many other opportunities. Our business is really creating memorable experiences in stadiums around the world. And so I want to just start out and show you a little I guess it's a sizzle video about Legends, about some of the projects we're in. And then I'll tell you about another project that is going to be memorable for all of us that we're involved with. You'll see it in the first sizzle video, but then I'll tell you more about it after I show this first part. The reason and the message that I hope will come across as I tell you about the second project is actually a critical point in your career. As you decide, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to do for a living, as you think about various industries and where you might have talents and where you might have applications, my message today to you is to become part of something significant. It makes your work a whole lot easier. When you believe in the mission of an institution the way President Holland believes in UVU, when you believe in this project that I'll describe to you the way that I do, and the passion and joy that I'm having experiencing this very difficult project, work becomes a great pleasure. So let's start out with this little sizzle video about Legends, describing what it is we're doing and bragging a little bit about some of the things we are doing. And then we'll go from there. Building the new stadium for the Atlanta Falcons. We're at the Washington Redskins. We're just growing from the Yankee Cowboy Stadium. We even took over Southern California. And we're helping build the new stadium for the San Francisco 49ers. Yankee Stadium, of course, brand new Yankee Stadium. Trying to renovate an old classic, the Rose Bowl in Churchill Downs, where the Kentucky Derby is played. And I mentioned Atlanta, and this is my most passionate project, the World Trade Center. California Angels, LA Stadium, or LA Angels Stadium in Anaheim, just barely took this over. Taking over Nassau Coliseum and the Barclays Center. Nassau is in Long Island, all being renovated, $160 million project. Yankee Stadium, our most iconic venue, along with the Cowboys Stadium, which is now called AT&T Stadium. The Browns, I mentioned, in Cleveland, and USC. This is, I'm going to show you more about this. This is the start, the entrance to the World Trade Center. Stanford. This is our first international client, Manchester City. Jacksonville Jaguars, who I think will soon move to London. And we do F1. This is the race in Austin, Texas, where we helped open that new venue. Mentioned the 49ers and their new stadium, Levi's Stadium, that will open next year. Done almost $1 billion in sales there in advance.
Legends are born of years of hard work and dedication, defined by innovation. Building a history marked by moments of greatness that tend to repeat and last forever. Make your own
Mariano
history.
Rivera walking off for the last
Legendary.
time. Greatest closer of all time, now retired. That voice was not my choice of a voice for a sizzle video. Anybody know who that was? Didn't recognize that? I said to our communications guys, I said, the guy sounds like a gangster. Why would you put him at the end of a sizzle video? Steve Sciarippa from The Sopranos. He's a gangster. He's a gangster. So that just shows you some of the projects that this young company is involved with. But again, the compelling reason for us to be building our company and growing is that we wanted to change the whole customer experience. And so using technology, we're moving toward a place where any game that you choose to go to, you'll never get it, you'll never see tickets again. This will be paperless tickets. When you sit down in your seat, you'll use your mobile device to order food and beverage and merchandise delivered to your seat 10 minutes later. And as you do all of these things, we'll be tracking your every move and your every expenditure, and we'll be able to market to you based on what you like. And so this is all changing around the face of sports, and Legends is at the head of that. As I pursued, though, this idea of building a company that could change the nature of sports and the customer experience, we came across a project in New York at the top of the World Trade Center, the top 3 floors of the Trade Center. And this became my passion over a year ago. The new World Trade Center, the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere, 116 stories high. The top 3 floors, they advertised, were available for someone to come in and create content around. And 14 companies in New York made it to the finals, and we were one of them. And the whole idea was that they wanted somebody to come in and create content at the top of the World Trade Center that would be compelling enough that 4 to 5 million people a year would want to come back and to enjoy that building. Now, in the old World Trade Centers, where I spent many nights in my years in New York, there were these restaurants at the top of the World Trade Centers called Windows on the World. Maybe some of you had an opportunity to be there. I remember many great nights there, but financially it was not a good proposition. It really didn't work to build restaurants up there. And so now as we build a single tower to replace the 2 World Trade Centers, literally right next to the footprint of the trade centers that stood there for so many years, it became our opportunity to create content that talked about the rebirth of New York, the resilience of our country, and an opportunity to do something special. So what we have done, if I can find a way to switch over here. What we've done is we've created this opportunity to show people the resilience of New York. Now, this does not talk about what happened on 9/11. There's plenty of that right next door. The memorials are right next to this particular building, and as is the 9/11 Museum, which is a huge museum that will take people through all of the history of what happened on that fateful day. This, on the other hand, we had to create, right from the beginning, a whole story around the resilience of New York and what it meant to build the World Trade Center. And having been in New York during that difficult time, and having followed up and worked down there in the days following this terrible tragedy, and having lost some of my personal friends from our little town in Connecticut who were in that building that day, suddenly this took on a new meaning for me. So we went out and hired the very best creative designers that we could find. We went out and found a group on the West Coast who were all the creative guys behind Universal theme parks. And we said, look, this can't be a ride, but it's got to be something special. And so working with them, we created the One World experience. Now the building is up, but the interiors are just now getting started in terms of construction. So we're literally breaking ground on this. It's funny to call it breaking ground on the 100th floor, 101, 102, and floor 100, but we still call it breaking ground. We'll start construction just after the first of the year to create both on those top 3 floors as well as down below something really special. So I'm going to do a little narration as we walk through this. So here's the entrance. This is down at ground 0, sacred ground. You walk in. Of course, it's a very secure building, so we'll have the latest in security that you go through. Here you type in your name and where you're from. This is the welcoming center. And as you go in, now you'll see above you an entire world globe, and you'll see what number you are from Orem, Utah, or from wherever you're from. This is the queuing area for the line, and there are videos playing along the side of interviews with people who worked on the building. Because it's amazing that of the people who are building this building, 60% of them have a relative that worked on the original World Trade Centers. This describes the foundation of the building, the granite that's holding up 116 stories. You're still queuing, but we're still entertaining you and giving you interesting facts here. There's going to be some queue if we're going to put 5 million people a year through here. Here you get on the high-speed elevators, and the high-speed elevators have LED screens surrounding them. The LED screens will give you a history of building in New York, how the buildings grew up around you in New York as you go through time. And then it's like the building itself is being built around you on these LED screens. And then there's a space docking station. As you reach floor 102 within 60 seconds. You step into the See Forever Theater and you see pictures that were taken of you as you walked into the building. And suddenly there is this dramatic flyaway of that wall to reveal for the first time the view from 1,776 feet above New York City. And all around a 360-degree experience from floor 102 with 30-foot windows that really will create an amazing experience. And about the time that you're getting hungry, you'll take the escalator down to floor 102. Up here, by the way, will be an extraordinary place for graduations and weddings. And then you go down to 102, where Legends will serve up the Legends Way, which is the most extraordinary food and beverage, healthy, all kinds of choices, well priced, so you can sit on floor 101 rather and have a nice meal. And then going down to our final floor, floor 100, now we use technology to teach you about New York. This is something that we're having the most fun with. What you see the people standing on is actually a screen that's projected up from the floor that is the view right outside the building. So cameras are mounted outside the building because when you get in a building that high, you'd like to look straight down, but it's impossible to do without technology. There are other things that will be mounted on the wall. See, we're advertising the Book of Mormon Broadway Theater, something I'm particularly happy about. And of course, as is always the experience in any tour, you have to go through the retail area to get down. So we'll sell you some goodies on the way out. Now, what's important about that experience forms the basis, though, of the message that I'd like to leave you today, and then I'd be happy to respond to questions about sports, since that's where I've spent most of my career. But I want to tell you a little story about the Trade Center first. On the day that I was to present to the entire board of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, on that particular day, this was last March, and it was we had spent probably over $1 million creating our bid, and we were down to the final two companies to see who was going to be the choice to go forward with this important stewardship. And I can't tell you how emotional it was for all of us, because most of us who are working on this project have lived in New York a very long time. So it was an emotional day for us. And I live in Connecticut. So on this March day, there had been a snowstorm the night before and a lot of high winds. And I backed out of my garage. This is at 6:30 in the morning. The sun is just coming up. And as I backed out of my garage, I realized something was missing. Something was wrong. I couldn't put my finger on it. I couldn't tell what it was. But as I looked down the rest of the driveway, I realized, it suddenly occurred to me what had happened. On the left-hand side of our driveway, a gift from my parents, we have this beautiful white flagpole. And at the top of the flagpole has always flown, lit up at night, this beautiful American flag. It's probably flown there for the last 10 years since my parents gave us that gift. But on this particular day, this March day, with all of the nerves surrounding this project, I looked off in the distance and I could see the flag was not there. And my first thought was, this is a bad omen. On this day of all days, this is a bad omen. So as I drove down the driveway, I looked around the flagpole to see if I could see the flag, and sure enough, the flag was it was all crumpled up at the bottom of the flagpole. It had torn and blown off, and there was enough of it that kept it in line that it slowly settled down the flagpole and was wrapped around the flagpole, covered with snow and ice. And I had two thoughts. I said, number one, this is a bad omen. Number two, I don't have time to do anything about this. I've got to get in there. This is too big of a day. And as I got to the end of the driveway, as is often the case in my life, I heard the voice of my father, who's been gone quite a while now. My father was a decorated Marine in World War II, who fought in Iwo Jima and who fought on Guadalcanal, some of the bloodiest battles of the Pacific. I remembered my dad telling me just as a young boy, son, never let the flag touch the ground. It means too much to us. We fought too hard for it. Never let the flag touch the ground. So now I'm sitting at the end of my driveway thinking, I don't think I can leave. I got to go back and do something about this. I backed the car up. In my suit, I jumped into the snow and ice and lifted up this tattered American flag. And I raised it up and, in my own way, shook it off and did my best Boy Scout fold by myself, folding it in the right squares and then the right triangles, and folding it up and then gently laying it in the back of the car, in the trunk. And as I got back in the car and got down and out of the house and on the way to the city now, just thought about that experience. And it struck me that actually what I was doing that day, presenting this idea for the top of the World Trade Center, I was doing exactly what I had just done. We were hanging the American flag back up. That's what this project meant. It wasn't just all these designer photos and ideas. We were hanging the U.S. flag back up. We were showing that despite all of the evil that exists in the world and all of the hate that somehow could be brought to bear by hateful and vengeful people, we were building that building back up. And I was part of hanging the American flag. So that day when I stood in front of the board authority of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, I started with that story. And I said, now we're here to build this. We're prepared to build this. It's going to cost over $100 million to build out these floors and the elevators. And we're going to make a financial commitment to do that. We're going to put it all on the line for you today. We're prepared to give the personal guarantees of the owners of the Cowboys, the owners of the Yankees, and me. We'll give our personal guarantee, but that's not what you need to know. What you need to know is we understand the significance of this project. Later, when we got the scores from our presentation, and we were told before this we broke into celebration, of course, because we were told we won. But the director of the Port Authority of New York said, nobody else cared as much as you guys. And that is that's my message to you today. You know, there are lots of opportunities. Right now, business is really in an interesting climate. And I've been in the business world for a very long time. It's a really interesting time. So much of what's happening is being driven by new technologies and new opportunities. And of course, the amount of value created by Facebook and Twitter and all of these IPOs that have happened. The number of billionaires in the Silicon Valley is at an all-time high. Nothing ever close to it. The president of the San Francisco 49ers, who's our partner and client, Gideon Yu, probably one of the most successful investors in Silicon Valley, the first CFO of Facebook. And since that time, his net worth is well into the billions. So extraordinary value is being created. But I notice the more people I meet, the most successful people are those that care deeply about what it is they're doing. I wanted to be in sports because that's how I grew up. Sports was my life. It was the last thing we did every day, my brothers and I. It was the first thing we started in the morning. It meant everything to us. I thought that I would probably be the owner of a sporting goods store. That was going to be enough for me, to be the owner of a sporting goods store. But as Brad mentioned, had a different opportunity that started with the Jazz at 28 years old and then went to the Knicks. And now I've kind of put that life behind me as much as I loved it. Now I want to do something for the customer experience. But all through this, I can tell you that everything that I've done, I've really enjoyed and really cared deeply about. So as you make your decisions and choices about what you'll study, about where you'll go, the choices may not seem all that numerous to you now, but they will grow as you prepare yourself by getting the best education you can, by doing everything in your power to get some experience somehow, some way, that is in your chosen field, and then to step in when ready. A lot of people say to me, you know, you became general manager of the Jazz when you were 28 years old. Now, that just seems like it's not doable for anybody in our day. And what I say to them is, it was a lot the right place and the right time. But when I go back to going to business school and then going to Bain & Company in Boston, which was my first job out of business school, and then I got an opportunity at Bain because people knew that I loved sports and that Danny Ainge and I were good friends, and Danny had been drafted by the Celtics. I was asked somehow to do the work on the NBA for Bain & Company. And for the next 6 months, I did nothing else but travel around the country and learn about the economics of sports, and learn about the economics of the NBA and how the salary cap worked and how the drug agreement worked, and changes in the labor agreement and what they meant, and how to run a great team, and the difference between franchises that could never get out of their way, that were continually in the lottery, and teams that won championships. I learned all of that over a 6-month period with a terrific case team of MBAs from Wharton and Stanford and Harvard working for me. They taught me about the economics of the NBA. So when it came time that the owners of the Jazz, back then a gentleman named Sam Battistone, who had moved the team from New Orleans. Have you ever thought about that, by the way? That there's a team in New Orleans called the Saints and a team in Utah called the Jazz? Have you ever? Never mind. It's, evidently you've never thought about it. But when the owners of the Jazz decided to go hire someone to come and run the franchise, the Jazz had 1,500 season tickets sold. They were being outdrawn every day by a minor league hockey team that played in the same building, the Golden Eagles. The team was bankrupt. The franchise was bankrupt. And I got the good fortune to be part of drafting John Stockton and Karl Malone. If those two guys, if we hadn't drafted those two guys, the franchise would never be here today. And now as it is, it's on very solid financial ground. But the point of the story is this. People say to me, you know, again, you were just in the right place at the right time when David Stern recommended you to go run the Jazz because you were from Utah. And I say to them, it's not true. I was prepared to do that based on that 6 months of getting a doctorate degree in the NBA. So when you think about what will be your opportunities and choices, ladies and gentlemen, I would say this to you because I know it's true. Your opportunities and your choices will be based on your preparation. I promise you, it's not about luck. It is about preparation. And the same is true in building great teams or building great projects. It is not about luck. It is not about what the universe properly rewarding you for your effort. It is about preparation. Get a great education. Work hard in your classes. Challenge your professors. Take advantage of this time. And good things will happen. Of that, I promise. Thank you very much. So I'd be pleased to respond to questions. I think we've left about 15 minutes for questions, which I think is about right, in case you want to talk sports or anything else. Yes, sir.
So you said preparation is the most important thing. If someone wants to go into sports management, what type of preparation?
So the question is, if you want to go into sports management, what kind of preparation would you suggest? First thing I'd say is, if you want to go into sports management, you should lay down until that feeling passes. It's grueling. It really is. But it's also a lot of fun. So if that's what you want to do, I think a degree in finance, a degree in marketing, and then after you get your undergraduate degree, try to move heaven and earth until you can get some position. And it doesn't have to be with a team. People think, well, I got to get with the Yankees, or I got to get with the Angels, or I want to work for the Red Sox. They're my favorite team. Those positions are few and far between. And very often, they're held, especially entry positions, are held by the son and daughter-in-law of the owner. Okay? So they're very tough to get. But think about the industry as a whole. It's a $55 billion industry that includes powerful companies like Gatorade and American Express and Adidas and Nike. Those are entry jobs that are in sports. And what I found over time, that in terms of my hiring, that I liked the best, I liked someone who wanted to get into sports but who had had some other real business experience, who understood marketing and channels and finance, and they were well prepared. Sometimes what happens is, and I don't get as many now because I'm not in sports, but when I was running MSG and the Knicks in the 90s, I got over 400 letters a week, and so many of them from Utah kids. And here's what they said: I want to work in sports. It's my passion. It's what I want to do. I'm an accountant, and I've got way too much personality to be an accountant. And so I want to get into sports. And I will work for you for free for the next year. I'll pay my own expenses. I'll move back. I'll work for free for a year for you to demonstrate that I can do this. They were the last people I was ever going to hire. Because if a guy or a girl thinks that they can work for you for a year for free, that's probably what they're worth. I want someone to say, I can change. I can really make a difference. When I took over the New York Knicks in 1991, the Knicks were really in a lot of trouble in a big city like New York. In fact, I took over in March of 91, and the team finished in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference, and we played Michael Jordan and the Bulls in the first round. Now, the Knicks went to Chicago for the first game, and I sat by the owner of the Chicago Bulls, a very, very tough guy by the name of Jerry Reinsdorf. He also owns the White Sox in Chicago. Very tough guy, one of my favorite guys, but a very tough guy. I'm sitting by him for my first playoff game as president and general manager of the Knicks. And as the lineups are being announced and the arena's really loud, Jerry turns to me and he says, by the way, Dave, I really should tell you this. You know, New York is not Salt Lake City. I said, really? Really? And he said, no, I'm serious. So much of your crowd in New York is there because they have a bet on the game. They're not there for the enjoyment. I said, well, Jerry, we'll see how it works out. And he just shook his head. He said, I can't believe a Mormon kid from Utah is running the Knicks. I don't get this. In that game, the Knicks lost by 41 points, which is still a playoff record. No team has ever lost by 41 in the playoffs. And I said to Jerry after the game, I said, Jerry, it's only going to take us a little while to turn this thing around. I'm going to be back next year. We played game 2 in Chicago. It was a little closer in a best-of-5 series. Now we come home to Madison Square Garden for game 3 in a 5-game series. We're down 0-2. And at the Garden, there were only 6,000 people. It's the only arena never to sell it that did not sell out a Michael Jordan playoff game. And the pressure and the heat that was all being directed my way since I was the new guy was incredible. The newspapers were having a field day with me. And in fact, on May 30th of that year, they all knew that Patrick Ewing had an out in his contract. He could exercise an out and become a free agent. And obviously, that would have devastated what was already a franchise that was low on talent. So on that particular day, May 30th, when he had his out in his contract, I was also trying to hire a new coach, because I had fired the coach who was there when I took over, John McLeod, a perfect gentleman, good coach, but not the right guy for me. So I was trying to hire Pat Riley, who had this great pedigree at the Lakers, had won a number of titles. And actually, it all came down to that day at the same time. Literally on the same day, they were both going to make a decision. Ewing to decide whether he was going to get out of his contract, and Riley as to whether or not he was going to accept my offer. On that day, the New York Post had a big and unflattering picture of me on the back of the Post. And standing next to me was the president of the Garden at that time, and the headline read, "Dumb and Dumber." I went out of my way to say, I'm dumb, by the way. He's dumber. Anyway, so the article talked about how on this day I was going to lose Patrick Ewing, and I would lose the opportunity to hire a legendary coach in Pat Riley. And it just so happened the way I had set it up, because I knew I couldn't spread myself to both negotiations, unbeknownst to either of them, we took a chance. We booked a suite for Pat Riley and all of his agents. And in the same hotel, we booked a suite on a different floor for Patrick Ewing and his agents. And then we booked a room for the Knicks brass and all of our lawyers in between. So we first went into the meeting with Ewing. And Ewing said, "Look, Dave, I've already committed. I'm going to exercise my out. And we hope the Knicks will compete for our services, but we can't guarantee you I'm coming back." Now, by the way, there was a dispute about whether or not he even had an out, because the out was based on him not being one of the top 4 highest paid players in the NBA. And there was some illegal activity going on around player number 4, where one team was trying to move Chris Mullin, their forward. They were trying to move him ahead of Ewing so Ewing could spring his contract and then go play for that team. So they'd been tampering and just trying to mess around with us. So I said to Patrick and his agent, David Falk, I said, "Patrick, we're about to make a major change in the Knicks. I know you're frustrated. You've been here 6 years. You've never been past the first round of the playoffs. We're about to make a major change in the Knicks, and we're going to win. And later today, I believe I'll be able to announce that Pat Riley has joined us as a coach, championship pedigree, great way to start. We'll make some trades. We'll develop our young players. We're going to have a powerful franchise here." And he said, "Well, I hear all of that, but I still believe I'm going to exercise the out." And I said, "Patrick, you don't have the out. That will have to be arbitrated, and we will win that arbitration, and you'll be our player. Just so you know, if you want to spend money on legal fees contesting that, I promise we're going to win that argument." So Ewing walked around the room a little bit and said, "Well, I still think I want to contest it. I want to see what the market holds for me." So then we got on the elevator. I had 4 lawyers with me. We went up to Pat Riley's room. We walked in, and we sat down, and I said, "Okay, Pat, what have you decided?" And he said, "I've decided I'm going to wait and see what Ewing does." I said, "Well, here's what I'd like you to do. Give me 30 minutes. Don't do anything for 30 minutes, and I'll come right back." And he said, "Fine." We got on the elevator and went back to our room, and now we walk into the room, and one of the lawyers that's accompanying me throws his books on the sofa, and he says, "Dave, you and all of us are going to get fired. We're losing Ewing, and we're going to lose Riley. And I said, you know what, before you guys panic, let's give it just a minute. Just give me a minute. I walked in the adjoining bedroom and closed the door, opened the curtains, and was looking out at the New York skyline, thinking about that line in the Dumb and Dumber article. Because the last line of the Dumb and Dumber article was this: today, the new president and general manager of the Knicks, Dave Checketts, will lose Patrick Ewing, Hall of Famer, and he will lose the opportunity to hire a great coach in Pat Riley. And then the last line was, he should have stayed in Utah. And once again, you know, this is always the influence that happens with me. My dad's voice, at those critical moments of your life, my dad made us learn poetry. He paid us money. If we wanted Christmas shopping money, he would pay us money to learn poetry. And one of the poems I had committed to memory was If by Rudyard Kipling, at my dad's urging. So now I'm in that room, I'm looking out at the New York skyline, and those words came back to me. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, yet make allowance for their doubting too. Those two lines right at the start of this beautiful poem giving sage advice about life came back, and I said, I know what to do. I walked out into the other room and I said, follow me, here we go. And they said, no, let's discuss this, let's sit down and brainstorm. I said, no, I got it. I'm the guy here that is going to take all the heat. You guys just come with me. So we walked out, we took the elevator down to Patrick Ewing's room. I walked in and I said, now Patrick, I want a great relationship with you because we're going to be partners for a long time, but let me tell you something. What is happening with Golden State trying to trigger this clause in your contract is illegal. And when I leave here, I'm going to call the owner of Golden State and tell him that if he does this, the one thing I've got a lot of at Madison Square Garden is I've got 17 lawyers. We're going to sue him until the cows come home. I promise. We will tie up your career, and we will tie up the Golden State Warriors from doing anything else in the free agent market. I promise. The lawyers next to me are going, wait. I said, no, that's what we're doing. I want to hear from you in the next 30 minutes about your intentions regarding the Knicks. Here's my room number. But don't make us fight with you, because what you're doing is wrong and illegal, and we will not stand for it. On the other hand, you can decide to sign with the Knicks, to keep the 2 years you've got on your contract, and to take this offer to continue for the rest of your career with the Knicks as one of the highest paid players in the game. I gave him the offer sheet, got on the elevator, went up to Riley, sat down with Pat, and I said, Pat, today at 4:30 at Madison Square Garden, we're going to have a press conference. And in that press conference, we're either going to announce you're our head coach, or we're going to announce that you've passed on the job, but you're not waiting for Ewing. You either want this job and you want to be with us, or you're going to turn it down. I need to know in the next 30 minutes. So we went back down to our room. We walk in the room. Now the lawyers say, oh, man, we are like dead. We're dead. I said, well, we called the question. Let's see what happens. I couldn't listen to them, all the doubters, so I just went in the other room, closed the door. It wasn't 5 minutes before the phone rang, and it was Riley. He said, Dave, I'm going to be there at 4:30. I'm going to be the coach of the Knicks. I accept your offer. I said, Riley, Pat, why all of this back and forth? Why all of the difficult negotiations? Why did you carry this out so long? Now, what he said was instructive. He said, I just needed to know how far I could push you. And I'm satisfied that you're the right guy to run the franchise now. I respect what you did 5 minutes ago. I'm coming. I'll be there. Then Ewing called 15 minutes later. Patrick said, I'd like to, at least with an arbitrator, test whether I'm a free agent or not. But if you win the arbitration, obviously I'm going to sign and stay with the Knicks. And, of course, we won the arbitration, and we went to the NBA Finals twice in the next 5 years with that coach and that player. Sometimes you just have to take a stand. But during that time, bottom line of that story is it was a very difficult time. So if you're planning on getting into sports, lay down till that feeling passes. Thank you very much.